The first time I saw my own ideas on a conference screen, I was 32 years old. I was working the night shift at a pharmaceutical packaging plant, my hands cracked from the cardboard and the cold, my back aching from standing for 10 hours. The break room had a television that someone had left on a science channel, and I was eating a sandwich I couldn't taste, staring at the screen without really seeing it when her face appeared. Astrid, my twin. My identical mirror, separated from me by 12 years of divergence that had started with a single lie. She was standing at a podium, wearing a blazer that cost more than my monthly rent, gesturing toward a slide that showed neural pathways I recognized. Synaptic plasticity. The way the brain rewires itself in response to experience. I knew those pathways. I had drawn them in notebooks when I was 16, when I was supposed to be sleeping, when I was dreaming of a life that had been stolen before I knew it was mine. The title of her talk flashed on the screen, Novel Mechanisms in Synaptic Plasticity, Implications for Memory Formation. Below it, her credentials: Dr. Astrid Voss, Ph.D., Assistant Professor of Neuroscience, Elite University. I dropped my sandwich. I stood up. I walked to the television and I pressed my palm against the screen, as if I could reach through the glass and touch the neurons that belonged to me. A coworker named Marcus looked up from his phone. "You okay, Ingrid? That's my research," I said. My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. "Those are my drawings, my ideas, she stole them." Marcus looked at the screen, then at me. He saw the resemblance, of course he did. We were identical, but he didn't understand. How could he? I had never told anyone about Astrid. I had never told anyone that I was supposed to be the one at that podium, in that blazer, with that PhD after my name. I had never told anyone that I was a ghost living in my own sister's shadow. Welcome to Little Bunny Stories. If you're here, maybe you know what it means to have your future taken by someone who looked exactly like you. Maybe you know the particular horror of watching your own face succeed in a life that was supposed to be yours. If this is your first time, hit that subscribe button. We tell stories here about women who reclaim their minds from the people who tried to own them, who turned stolen notebooks into published papers and broken promises into laboratories. Here's my story. Here's my story. Astrid and I were born 7 minutes apart. I was first, which meant I was supposed to be the responsible one, the serious one, the twin who studied while she partied. And for a while, that was true. We were identical in appearance but different in temperament. I was quiet and focused. She was charming and restless. I loved books. She loved attention. I wanted to understand the brain. She wanted the brain to understand her. We were 18 when we both applied to Elite University. It was our dream, the same dream, though we had never acknowledged the competition between us. We had shared a womb, a bedroom, a face. We had never learned how to want different things. Got in? She didn't. I remember the day the letters arrived. I was in our shared bedroom, sitting on my bed with the envelope in my hands, my heart hammering against my ribs. I opened it slowly, carefully, the way I did everything. "We are pleased to offer you admission." I screamed. I actually screamed, which was not like me. I ran to the kitchen where our mother was making tea and I waved the letter and I cried. My mother hugged me, her eyes wet, saying, "I'm so proud. Ingrid, I'm so proud." Then Astrid came home. She had gotten her letter too. She read it in the hallway, standing still, her face going pale and then red and then blank. She crumpled it in her fist. She looked at me, at my letter, my joy, my future, and something in her eyes died, or rather, something in her eyes hardened. "Congratulations," she said. Her voice was flat. "You got in." "Astrid, I'm sorry, don't be sorry," she smiled. It was not a real smile. It was a door closing. "I'm happy for you. Really." That night she came to my room. She sat on my bed. She took my hands in hers, our hands, identical down to the fingerprints, though I would learn later that fingerprints are not actually identical in twins, just similar. A small mercy of biology. "Ingrid," she said, "I need to ask you something huge. Something that will sound crazy." "What?" "Mom is sick. You know she's been tired, losing weight. She went to the doctor last week. It's cancer. Pancreatic. They caught it early, but she needs surgery and then she'll need someone home with her for months. Dad can't take time off, he'll lose his job." I stared at her. "Mom has cancer, she didn't tell me, she didn't want to worry you, not with your big future ahead." Astrid squeezed my hands. "But here's the thing. If you go to Elite in the fall, Mom will be alone. Dad will be working. And I'll be, here, failing. Rejected, watching you become everything I wanted while I take care of our dying mother." She paused. "Let the words settle. What if we switched, just for the first semester? I'll go to Elite as you. I'll take your classes, live in your dorm, be Ingrid Voss for a few months. You stay here, help mom through the surgery and recovery, then we switch back. No one will know, we're identical, I know everything about you. I can be you. I should have said no, I know that now. But I was 18 and my mother was supposedly dying and my sister was crying and the guilt was already building its house inside my chest. Just one semester, I asked. Just one semester, she promised. Then you get your life back, and I'll have had a taste of mine. Fair, it was not fair, nothing about it was fair. But I said yes. Because I was the responsible one. Because I was the one who sacrificed. Because I had been trained since birth to believe that my needs were secondary to the people I loved. I gave Astrid my acceptance letter, my financial aid documents, my social security card which she said she needed for registration. I gave her my notebooks, the ones filled with sketches of neural pathways, ideas for experiments, questions I wanted to explore. For inspiration, she said, so I can sound like you in class. She left in August. I stayed home. My mother did not have cancer. The lie unraveled slowly. The surgery was real, but it was gallbladder removal, not cancer, routine, 2 weeks of recovery, not months. My mother was walking around the house by September asking why I wasn't at school. Astrid is there, I said, as me, she's taking my classes, I'm helping you. My mother looked confused, then worried, then, slowly, understanding. Ingrid, she said quietly. Astrid told me you deferred for mental health reasons. She said you were having a breakdown, that you asked her to go in your place. The floor tilted. I know, my mother said. But she didn't do anything. She didn't call Astrid. She didn't call the school. She just looked at me with the helplessness of a woman who had spent her life avoiding conflict and she said, maybe it's for the best. You're the stronger one. You can handle this. I called Astrid that night. She answered with music in the background, laughter, the sounds of a life I was supposed to be living. Astrid, mom is fine. The surgery was minor. I need to come back. I need to switch. Not yet, she said. Her voice was different, distant, the voice of someone who had already moved into a new apartment and didn't want to hear about the old one. Mom still needs you. And honestly, Ingrid, I'm doing great here. The professors love me. I'm getting A's. If we switch now, it'll mess everything up. Just one more semester. I promise. One more semester became a year became 2. I worked at a grocery store, then a factory packaging pills that I had once dreamed of researching. I called Astrid every month. She always had a reason to delay. The thesis is almost done. The doctoral advisor wants to meet you. If we switch now, I'll lose everything. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Because the alternative was admitting that my twin, my other self, had looked at my future and decided to keep it. My mother died when I was 24. Breast cancer, real this time, caught too late because she had been too ashamed to see a doctor after the gallbladder lie. I sat with her in the hospital, holding her hand, and she whispered, I'm sorry, Ingrid. I should have stopped her. I was afraid. It's okay, Mom, I lied. It's not your fault, she died. Astrid came to the funeral. She was 24 too, but she looked different. Polished, confident, the blazer, the heels, the posture of someone who had spent 6 years being told she was brilliant. She hugged me at the graveside. I'm so sorry, she said, and then into my ear, so quiet only I could hear, don't make a scene, we can talk later. We didn't talk later. She left after the reception, back to her conference, her lab, her life as Ingrid Voss. I went back to the factory. I tried to apply to other schools, community colleges, state universities. But my transcripts were strange, gaps, withdrawals, a record that didn't make sense. I called Elite to request my records, and they told me that Ingrid Voss had graduated with honors, was currently in the doctoral program, had no holds or issues. That's me, I said. I'm Ingrid Voss. There's been a mistake. I'm sorry, the registrar said, her voice polite and firm. Our records show Ingrid Voss is currently enrolled and in good standing. If you believe there's been identity fraud, you'll need to provide documentation. I had no documentation. Astrid had my social security card, my birth certificate, my entire identity in a file somewhere. I was a ghost, a twin without a reflection. I worked. I saved. I studied alone, at night, using textbooks I bought secondhand and online lectures I watched on a cracked phone. I got my GED at 26. I enrolled in community college at 27, working days at the factory, taking classes at night. I got an associate's degree in biology, a bachelor's at 30, a master's in neuroscience at 33, all while Astrid published papers, won grants, became the youngest assistant professor in her department, became, in the academic world, a rising star. And all while I watched from the packaging plant, my hands cracked, my back aching, my mind still drawing neural pathways in the margins of time cards. The night I saw her on television, I didn't sleep. I went home to my studio apartment, one room, a hot plate, a mattress on the floor, and I opened the box I kept under my bed, the box of notebooks. The ones I had kept, the ones Astrid hadn't taken, filled with the early ideas that had become her career. I read them. I compared them to the papers I had downloaded from academic databases, the ones with Astrid's name on them. The similarities were not inspiration. They were theft, whole paragraphs translated from my teenage handwriting into her professional prose. Experiments I had designed at 16, published under her credentials at 28, and there were inconsistencies. Data that didn't match the methods described. Results that were too clean, too perfect, too aligned with the hypothesis. I knew, with the instinct of someone who had spent years learning to spot lies, that Astrid was fabricating. I applied for a job at her university. Not as a professor, I didn't have the credentials. As a laboratory technician. The kind of invisible person who prepares samples, maintains equipment, cleans glassware. The kind of person no one notices. I got the job. I started in August, in the building next to Astrid's lab. I wore my hair differently than hers. She had cut hers short, professional, while I kept mine long and tied back. I wore glasses she didn't need. I was quiet, efficient, forgettable, and I watched. I watched her charm graduate students into doing her work. I watched her recycle old data and present it as new. I watched her publish papers with results that I knew from my own reading were statistically impossible. I watched her accept awards for groundbreaking research that existed only in her imagination. And I documented everything. Screenshots of emails, copies of raw data that contradicted published results, testimonies from graduate students who had been bullied into silence. I built a file that grew from a folder to a box to a digital archive that I stored in 3 cloud accounts under false names. I was not angry. Anger had burned out years ago. Sometime between the factory floor and the night I had swallowed pills and woken up because a fire alarm in the next building had gone off at 3 a.m. What I felt now was something colder. Something that looked like purpose. I was going to expose her. Not because I wanted her life back, that life was gone, evaporated like water on hot concrete, but because the ideas she had stolen were still mine. Because the science she was faking mattered. Because there were students trusting her, funding agencies supporting her, a field being polluted by her lies. And because I was still Ingrid Voss, even if no one knew it. The Society for Neuroscience annual meeting was in November. Astrid was the keynote speaker, an honor for someone her age, a testament to her brilliant career. She would be presenting her latest work, a paper on synaptic plasticity that she claimed was based on 5 years of original research. I knew it was based on my notebooks, and on data that didn't exist. I registered for the conference. I used my real name, Ingrid Voss, because I wanted her to see it, to feel the first prickle of recognition before the blow. I sat in the 3rd row, wearing a blazer I had bought at a thrift store, my hands folded in my lap. She took the stage like she owned it. The lights, the applause, the authority of someone who had never been told no. She began her presentation, and I watched my own ideas flow from her mouth, dressed in her vocabulary, credited to her genius. The data was beautiful, too beautiful. Perfect curves, flawless correlations, results that aligned exactly with the hypothesis. The audience murmured appreciation. This was the kind of science that made careers, that won grants, that changed textbooks. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Questions began. Colleagues praising her methodology, asking about follow-up studies, inviting collaborations. I raised my hand. She saw me. Her eyes found mine in the 3rd row, and for a fraction of a second the mask cracked. She knew me. She had always known me, even when she pretended I didn't exist. Yes, she said, her voice steady but her hand gripping the podium. The technician in the 3rd row, I stood. Dr. Voss, your results are remarkable. I'm particularly interested in your methodology for the hippocampal slice recordings. You describe using a modified Krebs solution with elevated magnesium. What was the exact concentration, and how did you verify that it didn't affect baseline synaptic transmission? She blinked. The concentration is detailed in the methods section. Standard protocol. But your published methods don't specify the magnesium concentration, I said. And in Figure 3, the baseline transmission appears unchanged, which would be unusual with elevated magnesium. Could you clarify? A murmur in the audience. A colleague leaning forward. Astrid's smile tightened. The exact concentration is in the supplementary materials. I don't have it memorized. Of course, I said. And the temperature control for the recordings, you mentioned maintaining slices at 32 degrees, but your trace in Figure 2 shows spontaneous activity patterns more consistent with room temperature. How do you explain the discrepancy? Her face was pale now. There may be a typo in the figure legend. I'll need to check. A typo, I repeated. And the statistical analysis in Figure 4, you report a p-value of 0.001, but with your sample size and effect size, the power analysis suggests you'd need 3 times as many subjects to achieve that significance. Did you perform a power analysis before the study? Silence. The audience was still now, sensing something wrong beneath the polished surface. The statistical details are handled by my collaborator Dr. James Park, I asked. Who left your lab 6 months ago and filed a complaint about data fabrication? The room gasped. Astrid's hand was white on the podium. That complaint was unsubstantiated. It was settled, I said, with a non-disclosure agreement, which I have a copy of along with Dr. Park's original complaint. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a folder. But that's not why I'm here. I walked to the stage. No one stopped me. The audience was frozen, caught between scandal and spectacle. I plugged my tablet into the projector. The screen behind Astrid changed. My notebooks, the ones from high school, dated 2008, filled with sketches of neural pathways, ideas for experiments, the same concepts Astrid had just presented as her own. Side by side with her published papers, the dates showing she had developed these ideas years after I had written them. Then the data inconsistencies. The raw spreadsheets showing numbers that didn't match the published graphs. The emails from graduate students describing experiments that were never performed. The testimonies, anonymous but detailed, of a lab culture built on fabrication and intimidation. Then my story. A timeline, 2 identical twins, 1 acceptance letter, a switch that was supposed to be temporary. The years of factory work, the slow rebuilding. The discovery that my own sister had not only stolen my identity but sabotaged my attempts to build another letters to other universities, intercepted and destroyed. Job applications redirected. A systematic erasure of my existence conducted by the person who shared my face. I spoke without emotion. I was not crying. I was not shouting. I was presenting evidence, the way I had learned to present it in night classes and online forums and the quiet hours of a life spent in the shadows. Astrid Voss is not a neuroscientist, I said. She is a performer. She has performed my ideas, my identity, my life for 12 years. And the science she presents, the beautiful, perfect, groundbreaking science, is as fabricated as the person she pretends to be. I turned to her. She was shrinking against the podium, her keynote speaker's confidence dissolved into the terrified posture of a child caught stealing. You asked for 1 semester, I said. You took 12 years. You took my mother. You took my name. You took everything I was and everything I could have been. And you gave me a factory floor and a bottle of pills and the lie that I wasn't strong enough. I stepped back. I'm not asking for your apology. I'm not asking for your remorse. I'm asking this room, this field, this community, who gets to be a scientist? The person who does the work or the person who wears the face? I unplugged my tablet. I walked down the aisle. The silence was absolute, then it broke, whispers, then shouts, then the chaos of a career collapsing in real time. I didn't look back. I had spent 12 years looking back. I was done. The investigation took 8 months. Elite University convened a committee. They reviewed my evidence, interviewed Astrid's former students, examined her raw data. The findings were devastating. Multiple instances of fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism. Her doctoral degree was revoked. Her publications were retracted. Her position was terminated. She didn't go to prison. Scientific fraud rarely results in criminal charges, especially when the perpetrator cooperates with the investigation. She disappeared from public view, her name becoming a cautionary tale in ethics courses, a footnote in the literature. I didn't get my years back. I didn't get the PhD I should have earned at 26. I didn't get the life that Astrid lived, the conferences, the grants, the recognition. That life was gone, built on stolen time, and when it collapsed, it left nothing but rubble. But I got my name. Ingrid Voss, the real one, was verified by the university, by the state, by the slow machinery of bureaucratic truth. I got my notebooks back. Astrid had kept them. It turned out in a box in her office, trophies of her theft. I got a small settlement from the university, not for damages but for administrative error, enough to rent a real apartment and buy a real desk. And I got to publish. Finally. My own research, my own ideas, my own name on the title page. It was not groundbreaking. It was careful, methodical, honest, the work of someone who had learned to value truth over brilliance. But it was mine. I opened the Voss Lab 2 years later. It's small, 3 rooms, second-hand equipment, funded by a grant from an organization that supports researchers who took non-traditional paths. We study synaptic plasticity, the same field Astrid pretended to master. But we do it slowly, carefully, with the patience of people who know that real science is messy and uncertain and worth doing right. I mentor students. Not the brilliant ones who need to be managed, but the quiet ones, the late bloomers, the ones who work nights and study days and wonder if they're good enough. I tell them my story. Not for pity, but for perspective. To show them that a life can be interrupted and still continue. That a mind can be stolen and still think. That a twin can try to erase you and you can still exist. Astrid tried to contact me once. An email from an anonymous account sent 3 years after the conference. I'm sorry, it said. I was jealous. I was afraid. I didn't know how to stop. Can we talk? I didn't reply, not because I hated her. Hate requires energy I no longer have. I didn't reply because I was busy. Because I had a lab to run, students to mentor, experiments to design. Because my life was finally full of things that mattered more than my sister's regret. I am Dr. Ingrid Voss. I am 36 years old. I spent 12 years in a factory, 2 years in a lab technician's uniform, and 1 afternoon on a stage, reclaiming what was mine. I am not a rising star. I am not a keynote speaker. I am a scientist who learned that the most important discovery is not the one that changes the field, but the one that allows you to recognize yourself. If you are reading this, and someone has stolen your work, your name, your future, know that theft is not destiny. The ideas they took are seeds that can be replanted. The identity they wore is a costume that never fit. And the life they lived in your place is a shadow that disappears when you step into your own light. See you in the next story.